conference, international interdisciplinary seminar on climate change and environmental thinking. So, as I mentioned earlier, the afternoon question will begin with a special lecture from Assistant Professor Dr. Isabella Ng. Dr. Isabella is actually the one who initiates this conference to and make it happen. She came to visit us a year ago, and she has a talk with the president of our university, and then they have mentioned about the climate issue and environment, and after that we have been follow up with the conversation, and very honored to have other partners to make this conference happen as well, from the Faculty of Humanities at Ksat Sat University, the Faculty of Humanities from Chiang Mai University, and from Thai Film Archive as well. So before we begin with Dr. Isabella's talk, let me introduce her profile for a little bit. Dr. Isabella Ng is an assistant professor of the Department of Social Sciences and Policy Studies of the Faculty of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences at the Education University of Hong Kong. She is also the founder of Hong Kong Society and Asylum Seekers and Refugees, fighting for the rights of asylum seekers and refugees in Hong Kong and support their needs. Recently, Dr. Ng has also received such a very prestigious research grant by European Horizons, and she is one of the main principal investigator. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Isabella Ng. Isabella, are you still here, Isabella?
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. Thank you, X, for the very kind introduction, and I'm really pleased to use this 30 minutes to just acting as a bridge between the morning section and the afternoon session. So comments, questions are very welcome after the talk, but I wouldn't, without further delay, I want to start just looking at what actually is going on, and why are we talking about environmental justice all of a sudden, and what is this? We know that this is a global issue. We know that people have been talking about it. We know that this is the thing we have to put a lot of emphasis, fundings, or energy on it. But why, and what is it all about? Let me just. Oops. Sorry. Okay. So in the morning section, what I understand is that there was a discussion, a roundtable discussion on the role of social sciences on climate change and environmental issue, and how to raise awareness of it. And then in the afternoon section, the upcoming section is going to talk about how humanities as a discipline can engage in climate change and environmental issue using movies and other media to promote awareness of climate and environmental problems. And what about me? So I'm just acting as a bridge between the morning and afternoon sections. So what does it mean? So we want to refocus all this discussion about, rather than action, why do we have to act? What makes it important that we have to act, right? Why talking about climate and environment? Probably people said this is a no-brainer. We know we are facing a lot of, climate changes, crisis on environment. So which is why we have to talk about it. But why environmental justice? What is it all about? Now, we started this discussion out of the blue. I was I was in Thailand. I was visiting Naresuan University last January, and I got a chance to see the president, Professor Sarandip Tatani, and she was very kind. She welcomed me, and then we started talking about my research and then her research, and then we just came into talking about what we could do as academics, right? How we could help to support things that actually need to be supported. And then she told me about an article that she read somewhere in one of the journals, and I talk about at the tip of the mountain somewhere in Burma, there was a new form of virus developing. And this form of virus could be the next COVID, very, very lethal. And because of the climate change, right, global warming, the tip of the ice there, they're melting. And so they're going to flow down, to along the river, the Mekong River. Mekong River is actually the lifeline of, several countries, including Thailand, Burma, and Laos, if I got it correctly. And then if that goes down, it would mean Burma, Thailand, and Laos will be affected, seriously affected. In this case, now we understand that any problems these days happening in one place is not going to be just that place. The border is not a border when it comes to environment and climate problems, and pollution is borderless, right? And so is disease, right? So here, then we start talking about like what we can do. And she was so conscious that I said, the scientists can do anything, right? I mean, can the scientists do something? And then she said, no. We need cooperation and collaboration. Actually, the social scientists can do a lot of things. They are important because they are dealing with ethics, policies, right? And these in communication, they are the one who could help you generate ideas how we could spread the message, how we could, while the scientists could think of ways to improve, right, medicine, or how we could, stop this virus spreading. But social scientists are actually important, to be able to educate people, to be able to nurture people, to know, to be aware. And she was actually very generous of thinking. She was going to support some Burmese students to go to her school, her uni, to study medicine. And she was also thinking, we should do something. We should organize something to talk about this, how we could help. And that started this whole collaborative, interdisciplinary talks about environment and environmental justice. And why is it important? Now, because one of the key things that we notice when we talk about environmental justice is that it is not just about everyone will be affected, but there will be some people who are more affected than the others. Environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement and environmental laws, regulations, and policies. Now, so when it comes to Greta Thunberg talking about we're fighting for all, is it true that it's just going and taking out an issue and presenting it as everyone's problem? Or we need more than presenting it as everyone's problem, right? As I said, because these problems actually sometimes affect more, those people who are underprivileged, those people who are very often, they are deemed, they're rendered silent, those people who are ignored. Now, just give you an example of a case in Torres Straits in Australia. Now, a group of Torres Straits inhabitants who are the Australian Aborigines, they have been facing problems of their homes because of flooding, because of the climate change and global warming. Their homes are disappearing. And what happened was that the Australian government doesn't really pay heed to these things happening. So they were really upset and they were really scared. And they were, of course, very frustrated and angry. So what they did was they complained to the United Nations about the case. All right. So we're going to show the video. Would it be possible to play the video? They made a very powerful video talking about their problems and calling their whole project Our Homes, Our Islands, Our Homes. Let's take a look at it. X, are you sharing?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Should I stop sharing?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
So, would you like to show the video clip now?
I can. You want me to show the video clip? Okay. Wait. Because. 刪咗邊個啊？應該開咗共享先，再開嗰個。我係咪應該 share screen 先啊？係啊。我而家 share。會一直。我應該 share screen。
We as Authority Islanders.
We can, yeah.
Can you guys hear?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
We as Authority Islanders living in a part of Australia, north of Australia. All Torres Strait Island is similar, but each island has a unique culture of its own.
We have a very strong tie to this land.
This is my home.
This is our home.
This is their home.
This is my home now.
This is my home.
We love our island home.
This erosion is happening so fast, there won't be us left.
That's another sign of the erosion, washing the trees out.
The sea level is rising.
Our island is being washed away.
What you see here, this is what we've got. We've got nothing else to go, nowhere else to go. This is our home.
The way I see it here, that something has to be done.
The government should be accountable for this part of the world.
For the community to move down south, it's gonna disconnect them from their culture, their lifestyle.
I'm asking for help around the world so that our island will be saved.
Okay. How can I? Right, so I'm going to close this. Now, so what happened to this? So what you saw was actually a powerful video made by the Torres Strait Islander. They use this as as a tool to advocate the problems that they are facing because of environmental and climate change and environmental crisis. Now, so what happened at the end? What happened at the end to their advocacy project is that just on 22nd September 23rd, the landmark decision was delivered by UN's Human Rights Committee. A majority of the committee agreed with the claimants who originally filed the complaint against the Australian government in 2019, stating that Australia's climate inaction was a violation of their right to family life and right to culture. And so the committee overall agreed with the complaint, finding that climate change is currently impacting the claimants' daily lives to the extent that their rights are being violated, and that Australia is failing to take sufficient steps to secure the community's safe existence on their islands. The committee also asked Australia to compensate the claimants for the harm suffered and to do whatever needed to secure the community's safe existence. And the climate inaction is resulting in sea level rise and extreme erosion, effectively washing away the ancestral homeland of those inhabiting islands in Senator Cass Torres Strait, as well as destroying the natural sea and land environments on which they depend. Now, so this is, of course, a victory, a huge victory to these islanders, and they managed to communicate the problems because of environmental injustice. And we noticed that when we're talking about climate changes, environmental problems, we talk about it like this problem belongs to everyone, so everyone should care, which is correct. But what we see here is actually the Australian government doesn't care about it because these people are not really within the concern. They have some other things that they're more concerned in the others, right? Which is why we're bringing up this idea of environmental justice. While we are trying to promote environmental consciousness, right? And we have to promote that the environmental problems and we need to take care of it. At the same time, we have to be aware of environmental issues and climate problems. It's affecting everybody, but there are people who will suffer more than the others. And we have to be very sensitive and be aware of that. Now, that actually, I can share briefly my personal experience, how this brings into my awareness of this whole idea of environmental justice. It was my personal experience working with a group of asylum seekers and refugees during the COVID period. Now, during the COVID period, everybody suffered, right? I mean, we were kind of like always staying home. We were wearing masks. We had to try our best to get the sanitizers and the masks to protect ourselves. But there's a group of people in Hong Kong who have no legal status and who are very often being blamed for a lot of crimes, problems. And this is the group we call the asylum seekers and refugees in Hong Kong. And during COVID period, when I was trying to deliver all these necessities, these necessary items like masks and hand sanitizer, I had to be very, very careful. I had to be very careful to where I would deliver them and how I'm going to deliver all these items. Because there were all these discourses, all these messages and information spreading that, these people are very dirty. These people would cause us a lot of problems, And I think this is not something new. In fact, in Singapore, we have heard a lot about the migrants who are being cast into living in their dorm. And of course, they passed, if one get COVID, then the others would get it, easily. And then during the COVID period, that was what's happening. Number one, they don't have enough basic protection for themselves. Some of them actually, it was really amazing that because in Indonesia there were tons of masks, so we managed to get them through our members to from Indonesia to so that a lot of our members would be able to get them. But what happened was that they can't go out to buy food easily, and if we want to deliver items, then we can't do it all the time, and we have to be very careful. We have to find a place which is pretty much in the middle of nowhere or in a park where it's open area. So you see, we have lots of people, donating hand sanitizer, shower gel to the group. But when we were delivering it, we have to be extremely careful. Now, because there was a news about, I think is it Deliveroo? It's Deliveroo. So there was a Hong Kong customer calling and specifically state that they don't want ethnic minority, drivers to deliver the food. And that caused a huge uproar. But that was what is happening in Hong Kong. When these things happen, they very often, these asylum seekers and refugees and ethnic minority become the target. So when we are delivering all this, we have to be extra careful, right? So we stay in the park and we make sure that that everybody was wearing, they were wearing masks, and also they have to be careful because in fact the villagers one time called the police, and police came over. Now, so this tidbit is just trying to show you that very often when we talk about environmental issues, when we talk about climate changes, we made it as it is, like it's everybody's problem, so we have to be more careful and be more cautious about it. But in fact, we have to be more alert and we have to care because there are people out there who are even less privileged and they are even more vulnerable, people, they're more vulnerable to all these changes because of global warming and environmental issues. And so I think that's it for today. I believe that we'll be coming to the next section, right? Next. So comments, questions are very welcome. And also comments, questions are very welcome from my students as well.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Isabella Ng. And again, I would like to warmly welcome the student from Education University of Hong Kong as well. So if you have any question for your lovely lecturer, please feel free to ask as well. Thank you so much, Isabella, for your insightful thoughts and also firsthand experience for your asylum. And your talk is actually go along very well with our morning session. We have some conclusion that the issues of climate change and environment is borderless, and we need, be it trans, multi, or interdisciplinary approaches to reach the sustainable solutions, right? So I think we still have some time for Q&A session. So on site here with us or online or student from Education University of Hong Kong, we open the floor for you now. So if you have any question, just throw in. Kina, would you like to know?
Any questions from you guys? No?
From online audience as well. I mean, you can type your question in the chat box and we will read out the question for you. Or จะคัดสึอาจารย์พอค่ะ No? So anyone would like to ask or share your comments? If not, I think we still have some time. I think it will be great, Isabella, if you could share us more about your thoughts, your experience for your asylum seeker in relation to the issue of climate change and environment. Yeah, because you made such a very interesting remark on how, we all get suffer if our environment's gone bad, right? But I mean, some will suffer more than others, right? So could you maybe further elaborate on that remarks, please?
Thank you, X. I think basically, when we talk about environmental problems as a global issue, we tend to talk about it as it is, and it is basically equivalent. The problems is coming to everybody at an equivalent magnitude. But in fact, if we are really working with those marginalized groups, we understand that some of these environmental problems, like what I just show about the Torres Straits Islanders, those people who suffered tremendously, but we wouldn't know about it, right? I mean, we don't live on those islands. We live in the city, and we don't really know until they raise their voice, right? They complained it to the United Nations. They made such a powerful video talking about what has global warming has done to them, right? What has environmental changes has done to the islands, and how inaction from Australian government has actually almost, destroyed their homeland, isn't it? So these issues is actually not particularly affecting each and every one of us, but it's affecting a group of people who are the Aborigines, who may not be considered as what we call the privileged ones. I mean, in a lot of sense that these islands are far away from the mainland, from Australian mainland. So they could be ignored, they could be just rendered silent for whatever reasons, and they could be just simply not under the radar. And I've got this comment from, thank you for this comment. Thanks for your presentation. So true, marginalized group often become the most vulnerable victim. How do we build a bridge between the rich, educated, privileged group and the marginal to take collective action? Thank you so much. This is a very, very good, these are very good questions that we need to really address. And I think one of the thing is, as privileged, educated group, I think they need to reach out. They need to go to grassroots organization, or they need to understand their community by reaching out, by feeling the pulse and spotting the problem. And we sometimes use the word nose around, right? For example, I wouldn't know there's a group of asylum seekers and refugees in Hong Kong if I weren't living in a village where it happened to have a group of asylum seekers living there. And when you notice there's something interesting going on, and there's something which is unusual, I think it's just not bad to try to reach out. And throughout the years, I have the NGO, which is a grassroots NGO. I have had a lot of students and actually professionals emailing me and asking if they could come and volunteer. I think this would be the beginning of knowing the group, and whether you would like to continue on working on in what capacity, that would depend on your own capacity or your time and your energy, or like your job or your studies, right? And this is how we get to understand and we get to work with them. I think this the beginning, of knowing is important. So reach out, get a sense of what's going on, be more aware of what is happening around you, and then you take action. I think this is how you could start building up knowing these vulnerable groups and then taking action, or helping them to take action.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chong Lei, for your very interesting questions. And do we have any more questions online from the online audience? Would anyone would like to ask any other questions? If not, we actually doing quite good in terms of the time. So I would like to take this opportunity to again express our gratitude toward Assistant Professor Dr. Isabella Ng for squeezing your time to be with us today. She is actually teaching a class right now, but we would like to honor her because she is the one who initiates to make this conference happen. So thank you so much and welcome Rachel Harrison as well. So since Rachel is also here, so again, Isabella, thank you so much
Thank you.
for your time today. And okay, I think we will end the first session now from special lecture from Dr. Isabella Ng so that she can go back to her class. Thank you so much, Isabella. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so now I think we are going to continuously move on to our second session today, and our lovely keynote speaker online are already here with us, Professor Dr. Rachel Harrison and Professor Chong Li Yao. And from the on-site here, I would like to welcome my co-host, พี่มดเอก คุณสัญชัย I can't remember your surname. Chodiro he is the deputy director of the Thai Film Archive. Okay, and we on site here we also have Assistant Professor Dr. Pasut Lasukha. He is the Deputy Dean of the Faculty of Humanities at Chiang Mai University, and Sanchai will be the co-host with me today, and Dr. Prasud will be one of the on-site speaker for today. And as you can see on the screen, we also have two lovely speakers joining us online. May I first introduce Professor Dr. Rachel Harrison from SOAS, University of London. Hello. Yeah. And
Hello.
she
Nice to see you.
So she will share her observation on screen culture, addressing the issue of climate change and environment within the Thai and Southeast Asian context. And online, we also have Professor Chong Li Yao from University of Malaysia, Sarawak. Professor Yao is an expert in cinematography from the Faculty of Applied and Creative Arts. He will provide a unique perspective on the Malaysian context and how screen culture in Malaysia addressing environment and climate change issue in his region. So okay. So
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Tit. Thank you so much. And I think after we have really wonderful lecture by Isabel, I think it's good time for us to have the roundtable discussion on the screen culture, climate, and environmental thinking. So I would like to start the first question, which is directed to each of the panelists. How do you observe the trend in the screen culture and other form of arts addressing climate change and environmental issue? So maybe for the Professor Chong Rio, could you please share your insight from the Malaysian context, please? You're mute.
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Sanchai and Professor X. So the other speaker, Professor Dr. Rachel, and all the audience. Thank you for having me. I would to share. You could see it. Could you see what I'm showing?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's look good.
Okay. So basically, I will be covering the perspective or the cases from Malaysia, at least from my observation. So I guess I would like to start with this. Basically, most Malaysians are not sure what they can do to tackle climate change, according to the survey conducted by a university in Malaysia. So, but they find that most of the people know that there is a climate change issue, or they know there is something wrong with our climate now, and action should be taken. And they have this idea that climate change is alarming. But most of the respondents are into reducing greenhouse gases, but they don't know, and there are lack of faith in what they can do to mitigate climate change and its impacts. So, and according to a lot of actually academic writings, particularly in the long time ago, they believe that film could serve for the purpose of education and social actions. For example, Spiegelman in 1969 believed that filmmakers can take on the role of social engineers, like social agents, and influence society through their works. Among them, it can be community engagement and empowering participants. Filmmakers can engage with the communities in the filmmaking process, allowing participants to have a say in how they can portray on screen. So in a way, it's actually quite empowering the community themselves. And it can also be the catalyst for social actions, because the act of making a film can itself be a catalyst for social action within a community. The presence of filmmakers and the filmmaking process can influence and inspire individuals to address social issues and work towards positive change. But it sounds so sugar-coated in that sense. Why I say so, I will present that slightly later. Okay. This is my trend. I mean, that is the observation I found. Most of the films in Malaysia, when you want to talk about environmental issue or climate change, most of the time they are in this kind of genre, documentary. Okay. And documentaries serve as a medium to review, interrogate, promote certain perspective, and call for actions. But my point is, they can be overly dictating and giving a very strong single point of view. And sometimes it can be overly didactic, means very educational and intend to teach. So in that sense, actually it's quite dangerous, because it hinders the effect of engagement with the wider audience. When it is very much like educational, people just, that keep them away from engaging with the content, and they probably will not be really involved in the process of watching and appreciating the content. And it will go back to the same kind of audience who believe in the same cause. So that is something wrong with it, right? Another observation besides documentary, as we all know, there are a lot of animations trying to talk about that. For example, being one of the highest gross genres in Malaysia, animation actually generates its box office budget targeting family-oriented audiences. Okay, the story may be very straightforward, intending to show the importance of protecting the jungle and the animals, and it renders a very simplistic portrayal of responsibility in preserving our mother nature, focusing on topics which seldom call for attention, nor harsh reactions from the establishment. What I'm trying to say here is, it's very simple storyline, having illegal hunting, for instance, right? It's commonly found in the kids animation, and they set up very clear-cut distinction between the goods and the bad. So you will see heroes and you will see illegal hunters, for instance. And then the theme is in line with the hegemony. It doesn't really, it is really widely accepted by the popular audience. So it doesn't really tackle the structural issues. It only portrays something that people already know, and people widely accept, there is something wrong with it. That is good people, there's bad people. So very straightforward, very simple. So my concern is, will this kind of film really able to generate some kind of action? So awareness, probably yes, but yeah. So the effectiveness of animation in such is very much questionable. And another least common kind of film, I would call it live action film. As you can see on my screen, there are two films that are shown here. One is actually a short film that won a mini film festival called Bagan, depicting the story of the impending separation of two indigenous young boys due to the land reform of their village near to a coastal city, actually in Johor, the southern cities of Malaysia near to Singapore. Okay, so these two boys had to kind of like be being separated later due to this land reform in the place. And you also see another film called The Fortune Telling of Pak Lala, the 1959, also acted by the very popular actors and directors from Malaysia called P. Ramlee. Okay, so this film actually portray a protagonist find his fortune, prosperity, and later permission to marry his beloved princess. All right, it's really a real princess from the kingdom, but this only happened in the cave. So a very interesting story. So you see, environmental surrounding is often set as a part of a story where characters develop their relationship with. So they form friendship, find love, and oftentimes live action films tend to depict its beautiful or damaged landscape. So it can be very beautiful or something wrong with the landscape, right? And they offer some kind of takeaway, right? Some source of worldly prosperity. You might find gold, you might find money in it, might even find love in it, right? Just like the one that I showed you, the fortune telling of Pak Lala. It happens inside the cave. So, and sometimes wisdom that can hardly be found elsewhere. Okay, so I hope that gives you some kind of idea how environmental theme being embedded in live action film, right? At least from my observation in Malaysian film. Okay, in continuation to live action film, extending my previous presentation, which I have did, I think for the same group of people that invited me before, I think I had shared my view that horror film is a great avenue where psychological fear and fantasy brought by forest can be found. Amid modernization, many Malaysians have limited access to their surrounding nature. Such loss of touch might plant two very interesting observations that I found, where number one, fantasy towards forests where freedom could be found, such as what you could see and find in Tiger Stripes by Amanda Neil, the one on the left-hand side. So people have this kind of fantasy where when you go to the, just like the girl, if you watch it on Netflix, available on Netflix now. So if you see this girl, she was having kind of like coming of age, puberty, because her body is changing and nobody understands her. And her freedom only found later in the forest. So it's something like that. All right. And another film that I want to also talk about is Raw, the Soul, an unknown fear for forests found in Malaysian horror films such as Raw. Okay, according to a review which I found online, this review said that this film exploits viewer collective superstitious fear through the use of folklore and foreboding imaginary of the forest. So it's like something very fearful, something very bad is going to happen. These kind of images happening inside the forest. So one can sense something perpetually lurking at the corner. So I want to bring you to a reality in Malaysia. Yeah, according to Global Forest Watch, from 2001 to 2022, Malaysia actually lost 8.92 million hectares of tree covers, which is actually equivalent to 30% decrease in tree cover since year 2000. It's actually a very big loss, like 30% compared to 2000. So in these 20 years. So the impact is very serious. Among them, annual year-end or even early year floods in vulnerable states such as Kelantan, Terengganu, and Johor. And many researchers, analysts say that forest loss may be contributing to the worsenings of floods, with many of the hardest hit states also known for their highest deforestation rates, according to this Global Forest Watch data. Okay, so that's my first observation in terms of genres, kind of film, what kind of film will depict environmental related topics. These are the commonly found or some subtly found genres.
Okay,
My
go on,
I
go
still have
on.
something to proceed with. Okay. I think the other trend is you will find that a lot of environmental related topics are often picked up by NGOs. So you can see these are the film festival, important 3 film festival in Malaysia that cover issue related to environment. And they are backed by actually NGOs. The organizations of the film festivals are actually NGO. So these NGO will run film festival related to environmental topics or human rights related topics, and then they will screen film and discuss about it. But my attendance to this festival actually draw my attention. Like, is there something wrong with the film festival? Okay. Why I say so? Because and as you can see, there are also many other international environmental NGOs like Greenpeace, for instance. They often do a lot of good things. Like they will engage the audience through arts and films by spotting issues that may trigger or gain the attention for the participants. Like for example, this topic is actually about haze. Almost every year we will receive haze from Indonesia. So it's very troubling. Like almost every year, in the middle of the year, you will receive haze, terrible, as you can see on the screen. So this haze problem will somehow cause troubles among us. And Greenpeace spotted that, and they use this arts, film, and activism to do so, to talk about the topics. And this one is one of the short films they produce by Greenpeace. What I'm trying to say here is, if you can see, I will just play for a while. Right. As you can see, this film, Hazila, is a satirical take that highlights the destructive impact of corporate greed on the environment. So it actually wanted to spotlight this problem where it was caused by, according to them, the corporate people, which they have invested so much money in the deforestation in Indonesia. And in the end, this deforestation and the burning of the forest, the haze came over to Malaysia and also Singapore. Okay, so this film brings attention to the urgent need for legal measure to ensure that Malaysian companies will not contribute to haze locally and abroad. As you can see, this film actually received quite a lot of views, more than 180,000 views on this short video of 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Right? But when I read the comments found under the video, most of these comments are focusing not on the topics, not on the environmental related topics. It looks into the production values. It looks into things like, wow, it's like Hollywood levels. The cinematic level is like Hollywood level. So hopefully this will improve the Malaysian film industry. And tagging this person, Sophia96, he's actually a well-known social media influencer who is well known for visual effects. So what I'm trying to say is we never know what kind of impact their efforts is generating. So it might sidetrack to something else instead of focusing on the environment or calling for actions. So yeah, so the effectiveness of what they are doing should be questioned, and it should be further investigated or interrogated. And it bring me to another question. That environmental efforts draw the wrong cards. Are we drawing the wrong cards and very likely achieving very insignificant impact? So in a landmark 1995 papers by Ronald Inglehart, actually observed an intriguing pattern in public support for the environmental movement. He argues that citizens were apt to prioritize environmental concern only if they were rich enough not to have or to fret about more basic things like food and shelters. Meanwhile, okay, so this paper trying to contradict the idea because the previous theory was saying only rich people will buy the idea of environmentalism. They are very much contributing to the idea of environmentalism. But in this recently published opinion piece on the New York Times, this writer, Neil Gross, say that while traditional theories suggest affluent society prioritize environmentalism, recent research challenged this notion, highlighting the variability of the public supports. But what I want to highlight here, as you can see on the bolded words, without addressing underlying social disparities, bold policy changes to combat climate change may struggle to gain traction amid growing class resentments and partisan struggles. So our real problem now, yes, we have climate change issues, but what we should address now is not really only that, but a wider issue of these class resentments and partisan struggles. So if we couldn't bring people across partisans, across groups and different ideologies or different ideas together, we will never be able to achieve what we wish to achieve. So I guess that brings me to my final point on my observations. I think social advocates always have a very good things. They are very positive. They are very motivating to hear from. But is that a false hope? Social advocates using film as a medium for change may tend to neglect underlying structural issues of politics, economics, racial, environmental, and gender injustice. And they have some kind of common pitfalls among themselves. Either they only focus on urban-based audiences or relying heavily on funding. So when there is no funding, they couldn't do anything. They will stop. So our question here is climate actions can only happen when you have funding, right? So most initiatives can be easily diverted and stopped when there is no funding or there is no continuous counter-narrative mechanism. I guess that will be my observation for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chong-Li, Professor Chong-Li. I think for the Professor Chong-Li that being at to the Malaysia and review the problem and the insight that it's quite interesting to listen Professor Chong-Li talk about the movie, the Chong documentary and also the animation that I think in the Thailand we also have some similar which is, I think the next speaker will talk about that. But for your note, if you're interested to see Tiger Strip and Law, the Malaysian film that Professor Chong-Li mentioned, you can watch it in Netflix. So you can see that how the movie that articulate with the environmental issue where the goals spirit in the movie. I think it's so interesting and very interesting to and I'm glad that Chong-Li you mentioned about that too film. So can we go to the next speaker?
Okay, yes. And due to the cyber security reason, because in the morning session, the internet wasn't that stable. So I will try to ask our online speaker first. So the next question, could I ask Professor Rachel Harrison to respond to the same question, like how do you observe in Thai mediascape, how Thai mediascape address the issue of climate change and environment? Please, Dr. Harrison.
Thank you, Dr. Atit. First of all, thank you to everyone for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to join you. Slightly strange to join online and quite early in the morning in London. So please forgive any kind of inconsistencies in what I say due to it being so early. But I also, because it's a round table, I didn't prepare a PowerPoint presentation, so I hope you can bear with me just talking this question through. I also wondered whether Sanchai was better placed to answer this question than me, but I can give my impressions from the work that I've been doing since I started working on Thai cinema when the boom came in after the Tom Yam Goong crisis, the economic crisis of 1997. And there's certainly some connections with the presentation from our previous speaker. So I was casting my mind back to how things were at the end of the 1990s in terms of Thai filmmaking, and particularly thinking not necessarily of environmental crisis as such, but thinking about the way in which those so-called avant-garde filmmakers who came to the fore at the end of the 1990s were had a particular kind of view of nature and the countryside, which was highly idealized and highly romanticized, and which was seen very much from their own very urban perspective. These were filmmakers who had been educated in Bangkok and New York and Chicago and so on, who didn't really have much contact with the countryside, but replicated a rather sort of Bangkok elite view of a rural idyll, of what the countryside could be in terms of a pure place of nurturing and so forth. And I think that there's a sea change that comes along, in particular with the work of the very well-known Thai filmmaker Apichatpong Weerasettakul, that pushes back against that kind of dominant, rather bourgeois agenda. And it pushes back against it by reinvigorating rather traditional and lost notions, which are the same kind of notions that came up in the previous discussion, of a link to animism and connection with the land through exploring the idea of this close connection between the land, the environment, and its spiritual values. And I'm thinking of that really as a kind of post-colonial gesture. In a way, it's certainly a pushback against dominant power because of the way in which the project of modernity in Siam/Thailand comes into focus during the 19th century, and the way in which there's a kind of a Bangkok elite move to erase certain forms of knowledge, particularly to label kind of ideas around the countryside, the forest, ba, as being barbaric and being uncivilized, and a push by the center to mimic the kind of civilizational values, so-called civilizational values of the West, and to adopt ideas of the rational and the scientific. And this push for modernity in Thailand really erases the power of animism and of connections to the land that are experienced in a much more rural way. So I think that by way of context is just to talk about where I would position Apichatpong's filmmaking and the kind of younger generation of filmmakers who are clearly very influenced by his filmmaking approach. So I wanted to start off by thinking about films particularly like Tropical Malady in Thai, Sapralat, Cemetery of Splendor, Rak Thi Khon Kaen, and Uncle Bun Mi recalls his past lives, Lung Bun Mi Reluk Chat, which was the Cannes Film Festival Palme d'Or award winner in 2010. These films are all really good explorations of the way in which there's a strong seam of existing belief in animism and spirituality that ties itself to the land, to trees, to countryside, to rain, to skies, and so on, that is explored in these kind of deeply impressionistic and memory-driven films by Apichatpong that explore the power of people's connection to the forest. For example, I'm thinking of Tropical Malady and the way in which so much, in particular of the second half of that film, explores the visceral effects of being in the jungle the sense of fear of encountering a were-tiger, and particularly thinking of the mockumentary made about tropical malady, which took two people from a northeastern Thai village down to Bangkok to watch a screening of tropical malady at the Alliance Française. In the context which so many Bangkok middle-class film viewers had said they had no idea what this film was about at all. By contrast, when the two Isan villagers went to watch the film, they came out and were interviewed and immediately said, "Oh yes, we know all these stories. You know, these are normal stories to us. Everybody's seen were-tigers, and we know exactly what this is about." And it's quite ironic, actually, and part of the kind of problem of the structure of sort of post semi-colonial Thailand, that this film has really only been screened for a short while in Bangkok, very little in the countryside, and it has much more kind of weight in the international film festival circuit than it does at home, because it speaks to issues which got buried by the colonial process and by Siam's response to the imagined or real threat of colonialism. So I think, again, just drawing some examples from Uncle Bunmi as well. For those of you who've seen it, it's a film that explores the kind of memories and dreams and imaginations of past lives that come to a man who is in his dying days and hours. And he remembers explorations into the deep jungle. He remembers being a princess in a previous life, having an erotic encounter with a fish in a pond, and the explorations of the scenery in which the characters in the film go deep into a cave-like atmosphere, really connect up the Thai psyche with the environment, which I would argue has been severed by this kind of enforced link with Western science, Western modernity, and Western rationality. And I wanted to, I don't know how I'm doing for time. I've got 3 minutes left. Okay. So I wanted to finish this part of the presentation by thinking about the enormous effect that Apichatpong has had on younger filmmakers. Particularly, I'm thinking of Nontawat Nambenjapon, whose work is really kind of picking up these themes and trends and exploring them further. There's a short piece by him that's available on YouTube called The Breath of Tomorrow, that was made in 2021, which is a good example of the way in which he explores connections between the human and the environment to expose a kind of covert political criticism. This film refers directly to Myanmar, but it also has sort of wider political implications. And the film sort of tracks between seeing a naked man cover himself in the mud of a riverbank, interspliced with pictures of a man on a boat in a kind of rough river water. But these connections with nature are something that are intrinsic to exploring what has been suppressed in the Southeast Asian psyche through this severance with the environment. And perhaps I would like to finish by just turning to a discussion of Nontawat's film that he made in 2013 called By the River. In Thai, it's called Sai Nam Tit Chua, which is not by the river, it's the waterway which is infected. And it's a documentary about the villagers of Kliti Creek in Kanchanaburi province, whose water was for many years badly affected by lead pollution coming from a nearby factory, and very much to the excuse me, very much to the detriment of their health. The documentary explores the effects of lead poisonings on this community, and the way in which they tried to fight back against government powers. So I would argue that, and I'm taking here inspiration from one of my PhD students, actually, George Cloak, who's currently working on a PhD on Southeast Asian cinema and the environment. So it's all credit to George that he pointed out the existence of a book by Rob Nixon, written or published in 2011, called Slow Violence and the Environmentalism of the Poor. And George uses this concept of slow violence to really kind of explore the effects of environmental damage on communities in Southeast Asia that are explored through the medium of film. So, sorry, that's my timer going off. Ajahn Atit, I don't know if we have time to show the trailer for By the River. If not, no problem. But if you do have time, then if we can screen that, I'll give you a bit of a visual idea of the kind of things I've been talking about. Thank you.
It's okay, I think we still have some time. So shall we show the clip now?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you. And that's the point at which I wanted to end the talk.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
พี่เก่งค่ะเปิดคลิปได้เลยค่ะสายน้ำติดเชื้อค่ะใช่ค่ะใช่
อะไรใกล้อะไรใกล้ไปเที่ยวไหนแล้วมันอะไรใกล้
รู้เหมือนบอกมันเล้งกลับแม่บอก
ไม่ดำปลาใคร
ใช่กับสุกระบอกแล้วแล้วใครก็ไม่รู้
เด็กมันดำมันทงเด่นมันไม่ระวัง
คือเดินตาม
แต่เราเมื่อวานยังมีใครหน้ามีใครเจนด้าไปเลยอ๋อตรงที่ไปดูอ่ะเยอะขนาดเบอร์ใหญ่ขนาดยางโอ้อะลานมอนะมันก็เหมือนเวลาหลับไม่หมดอาจจะหาสักวันอาจจะไม่หมดอาจจะมีส่วน
Thank you. I think there's nothing more for me to say. So closing on Nontawat's words, visual words is a good way to go.
ปิดเสียงด้วยนะคะ Thank you so much Rachel for your insightful observation so yeah พี่เก่งปิดเสียงด้วยนะคะปิดคลิปด้วยค่ะ Okay. Thank you so much, Rachel, for your insightful observation. So we can see how Thai cinema has intersect the issues of environment with local belief, social class, and so on. So we can also see from Dr. Rachel Harrison's the trends or the work of key filmmaker in Thai cinema, like how they present or represent the issue of environment and also how they have an impact on each other work from the past to the present. So thank you so much, Rachel. And
and it seems like I'm gonna be the Netflix representative. I'm not. I'm working for the Thai Film Archive. But for your note, by the river, we're gonna show in Netflix next month. Next month, you're gonna release. So you might
That's
have a chance to
fantastic.
check it out.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
But I'm working at the Thai Film Archive, not Netflix. So, so the next speaker will be Dr. Prasud. So maybe after we see the Malaysian context and Thai context, Prasud will bring us to the global landscape. So can you share us the the other form of other presenting or represent the climate change or environmental issue? Can you?
เดี๋ยวขอเปิดสไลด์หน่อยไหมครับ so I think I would ask to and I have apologized I have to stand in front of the stage because so that I can see the slide my own slide so even though this is a round table but I thought that it might be a good idea to kind of put together the things that I have been not working on strictly but been interested in to do so in the past few years so I kind of title my kind of thoughts, I guess, generally as ways of screening, seeing, and signifying oceans. One of the reasons that I came up with this title is because one of my interests in the context of environmental thinking is actually about ocean. And this morning, Dr. Chakrit has already mentioned quite a bit about the kind of ontological kind of status of the ocean in relation to the absorption of the CO2 and other gases. And I think that's something that I would like to kind of share today. So when it comes to kind of a screen media and other kind of screen related narrative, this is kind of my kind of overall interest in the role of media in the kind of larger context of environmental thinking. So this is not by me, by other people within the media studies. So media is actually not just some kind of material or artifact or some kind of practice that works on a kind of one-way basic signifying or communicating or invoking some kind of awareness. But actually, if we think about nowadays, the kind of modern context where we everyday life we've been saturated all around by different forms of media, right? So there's been a lot of a few other many scholars who start to argue about the role of media in shaping our thinking and shaping our ways of life and our subjectivities in present times. So within the kind of environmental thinking itself, this is my best try to kind of put the kind of theoretical concept into some sort of an easily digestible infographics. So if you think about kind of media that plays a part in this kind of three corners here. So one, you get this kind of perceptual part where our kind of worldview has been shaped by whatever content, narrative, or anything is in the media. But also the media itself work as a kind of informational and literary kind of aspect as well. Media as a materiality, it really depends on what kind of platforms are you working on, and of course you might a lot of people might be interested in the kind of later aspect where media also plays a part in kind of social and environmental practice, and that's this morning we talk a lot about politics, power relation, negotiation, and so forth. So when we think about the media kind of screen media culture, we're actually talking about that mediation kind of process of the media within the kind of environmental ecological practice. And when it comes to ocean, of course, this morning, Ajahn Chakrit mentioned this, and Ajahn Thanapon, who's engineer, also talked about this already. When we talk about ocean, so it's not just the ocean or marine kind of a unit or aspects of this planet Earth alone, right? Within the kind of climate change or climate crisis, oceans is, connected to everything, all these planetary elements. When temperature rises, the kind of marine ecology change, right? The way of our lives get affected. So it's not just the ocean, but the part of the whole planetary being, right, that gets transformed by the ecological environmental transformation. So my kind of interest nowadays actually very small, even though I start with something very big. And I try to start from my own original kind of traditional training by looking at how oceans basically is given meanings through this kind of screen media cultures. And today I'd like to kind of give you a tour on the two types of signification process that happen in the screen medias nowadays, not just in Thailand, but elsewhere in the world as well. So I kind of classify them into two types. First one is, ocean as being a mysterious or scary kind of place. The other one is more like a kind of beautiful and kind of sublime kind of idea. I think Ajahn Natanai this morning talked about romanticism, right? These words actually echoes, the traditional ideas of romanticisms a lot, regardless of whether they come from the English or the German traditions. Of course, when it comes to kind of mainstream Hollywood media, right? Oceans have been kind of given kind of stereotype, I guess, the images of being a scary, or if not strictly scary, but more like a kind of mysterious place. You can think about like kind of very classic, Jaws movie, those movies that kind of features this, kind of scary, kind of marine creatures like shark or other, I guess, creatures that would attack the protagonist. You get those kind of film that plays upon this kind of motif of the kind of mysterious places in the sea, right? 1999 on Netflix, the Bermuda kind of stuff. In Asian context, of course, you always get this kind of ocean or the sea as a kind of ghostly, I guess, elements as well. There's a big genre that it's the film all about this kind of protagonists get left on the island. They come across with this very scary or ghostly kind of phenomenons in the film, and also many of them are based on classical literature as well, Japanese, Thai, a lot. This is the scene from Jaws. I don't know if you guys have seen this in the past, but of course, this tied up angle, right? The camera angle. I term this kind of terrestrial or human centric. This morning, Ajahn Jakrit talked about we tend to kind of look at ocean from our human land-based centric, right? I use a different term, terrestrial. The human centric. Guess. So in this kind of film or the screen narrative, when we jump into the kind of ocean and we think about ocean as being a kind of mysterious, scary place, these kind of film uses a lot of this kind of cinematographic practice where you have this camera at the bottom and shooting up, and it looks like something is going to come up to eat you or something like that. So that makes the whole film very dangerous. But not just the film itself, but also in the popular everyday life social media that we are used to nowadays. Recently, this is a very kind of interesting, it's very sad news, but also very interesting news for me because when the Ocean Gate, right, the Titan, trying to get down to observe a Titanic wreck, right? The accident happened. What really happened after the news about the accident is, all this kind of computer graphic, the simulation, everything of how how do you call it? Capsule, I guess, implode, not explode, right? Because it had to be crashed down because a lot of pressure underneath the deep water, right? This kind of news with all this graphic also kind of reinforce the idea of ocean as being a very mysterious, kind of scary, the place where like beyond kind of human capacities to reach or to make sense of. So that's something to think about when it comes to this kind of scary and oceans. How do this type of media representation influence our perception and social practice towards the ocean? Ocean looks scary, but does it have anything to do with the development of environmental literacy? So that's something that I'm actually trying to a few years has been a few years already trying to kind of answer that. Maybe people in online or in this room might have a further conversation on this. Of course, another side of the ocean signification, meaning signification is, ocean is very beautiful, sublime. Recently I went to see this, Avatar, the second one, which is really nice on the computer graphic, redesigning the underwater environment is very kind of, a very idealized kind of place to be, as if you want to kind of jump down into the water. In Netflix, of course, documentary that has been a lot of documentary that kind of one way or another share the theme or the issues about the ocean, but the production is really well in terms of highlighting how beautiful it is under the water. In social media, which is something that I'm very interested in because I spend a lot of time, looking my friends' news feed and all that. I mean, not like an anthropologist who study, but yeah, this is some phenomenon that happen in the social media as well. Of course, in Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, they're all kind of this kind of social group where people who go diving or go kind of do this recreational diving, kind of not just only take beautiful photography of underwater, but many of them actually use them to kind of create their own identities as well, especially in IG, where it's one of the platform where people use to kind of project how their, I guess, the everyday life, or I guess, the kind of images of the kind of, unique experience, that kind of stuff. And if you're interested in, those kind of more thesis on capital Holocene, of course, the kind of beautiful oceanic landscape, underwater landscapes also get capitalized by some entrepreneurs as well. In social media, I think in scuba diving, free diving, snorkeling, they've been using this kind of beauty image of underwater to promote their to promote their kind of trips and whatever. One of the groups that I've been following and trying to kind of make sense of these people are those who try to kind of chase or once in a lifetime get the experience of being close to whale sharks. Well, I mean, in the diving kind of or culture, I guess, seeing the whale shark is like having this holy grail, because it's not really easy to find, except you become part of this kind of knowledge in produced in social media, where they give you a kind of clue where to meet these whale sharks. What is also interesting is that behind this work of beautiful representation of the oceans, right? If you have been to the sea or snorkeling or swimming in the coastal area, right? Using your eyes instead, you wouldn't always have that underwater landscape as very beautiful, right? Most of the time, the sediment, the dust and everything, it doesn't look really quite beautiful. But what really happened in social media or the diving cultures community is that there always this kind of knowledge sharing, how to and everything about how to make your image or your, I guess, representation under the water looks as if the ocean looks very beautiful, nothing cloudy or nothing, no trash and anything. So that's something that's very beautiful as well, interesting as well, and all these application that people have just made, and utilizing the AI and whatever to make yourself under the water looks magnificent. So that's something to think about as well, about this, the beautiful image of underwater. How do this type of media practice, in parentheses, constructing a beautiful and clear ocean, allow us to understand the design and the perceptions towards the nature of the film, and a film goers, I guess, and the social media users who are tourists and recreational divers. Another aspect that I've been trying to kind of understand and make sense is this kind of another group of media practice that go beyond this binary opposition between representing ocean as a beautiful places or the mysterious places. I have not yet been able to find a good terms, but borrowing the terms in the kind of modern human studies or the multi-species studies, indigenous epistemologies on ocean. So there have been also many documentary films. I think we heard about the Malaysian context just a few minutes ago, that documentary becomes a really interesting genre to kind of to highlight or to talk about environmentalism and also the practices. In the context of ocean itself, there have been a lot of documentary films that the filmmakers went to study or work with the local people, especially in Indonesia, where there are a few ethnic groups who dive as part of their daily life. This kind of Jago film, the Bajo, which is the two film focus on the group of people called Bajo in Indonesia, who dive and of course come to have challenges during the kind of climate change kind of seasons. This is a scene from Jago. The narrative start off by just this protagonist who grow up with the sea and they face a lot of challenges. So in this kind of film, the sea is not really totally represented as a beautiful place or the mysterious place, but it's part of that growing up process. If you think about like a kind of Bildungsroman kind of motive, you can see that the film itself, the ocean itself becomes part of their life. So it's something that is beyond those kind of beautiful and mysterious representation of the oceans. Another film, the Bajo. This one seems to use a kind of very raw condition, raw quality of the film. The filmmaker didn't try to use AI to kind of make the underwater landscape looks beautiful. It looks as if it is, very cloudy. And if you get used to a lot of looking at Instagram, social media, underwater, the beautiful scene underwater, and you look at this film, you will be quite annoyed about like the filmmaker should have done this better. But I think it's their intentions not to make kind of make excess kind of exaggerate the condition underwater, make it look as raw as much as possible. And actually I tried this as well. There's one time that I went to dive and I was trying to learn how the not indigenous people, but the local people in southern part of Thailand actually spear fish during the COVID time, because COVID time, the tourism industry in the southern Thailand became really difficult, and a lot of local people who used to ride the boats or sell stuff to tourists, they have to also survive by fish and spear fish by themselves. So I tried the same thing by using my kind of small GoPro and record how they dive basically, and try not to make the video looks very glamorous, raw quality as much as possible, which I learned quite a few bits, but haven't had a chance to kind of conceptualize. So I think that's pretty much it from my part. I would like to end my talk presentation as with Steve Menz, who's wrote a lot about ocean literature, the awkward relationship with humans and water. We depend upon it and love it, but we cannot be our home. And I think this probably echoes a lot of conversation that we have today too. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pasut. It's really, really, really interesting to bring back the idea about the ocean and how human perception toward the ocean, and it's quite wake me up and think about that as well. Like social media recently, I found that maybe not recent, but I think they're going to be like a trend for many years that you go to the driving tip and they have their cinematographer for you. So you just pay the money and then you will have the beautiful photo. Can guarantee that because they
guarantee and they actually control you when they will tell you every part how you
don't need to drive, you just be there.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Why people want to do that? That's really interesting.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Pasut, for your very insightful presentation. So I think we are going to move on to the next question, which is actually a very main agenda, one of the main agenda of this conference actually, which we try to emphasize on how the interdisciplinary approaches can engage to the or respond to the issues of climate change and environment. So our next question to our speakers is, in what ways can screen culture or other form of arts actively and sustainably engage in the climate change and environmental issues with interdisciplinary approaches. And for this round, I would like to begin with Professor Chong Lee, please.
But can it quite short because it's quite short of time that we
Okay,
have.
yeah. I think we have about like less than 7 minutes each. So for this question, please, Professor Chong Lee.
Thank you. It's great to hear the presentation from the previous two presenters. And from the last presenter, he actually pointed out a film, The Bajau from Indonesia by a filmmaker called Dandi. I will talk about the filmmaker very, very soon. It's actually an Indonesian case, but I think it's very much relevant to our discussion here, even though I have to focus on Malaysian context. Okay, the one that I'm trying to see is I want to give some kind of some samples of good practices that I found interesting and I find probably very much practicable and feasible for us to duplicate in our context. So for this is one of the very good projects by Freedom Film Network. This project was initiated by that Human Rights Film Festival in Malaysia entitled Amplifying the Voices of Young Orang Asli Women. Orang Asli means indigenous. So it is indigenous women. So it's actually a collaboration between the NGO with young indigenous women from various tribes in Malaysia, because there are so many tribes in Malaysia, but most Malaysians don't know them. And even among themselves, they are not clear who they are. There are so many tribes of indigenous people in Malaysia. So it aims to amplify their voices through storytelling as they articulate their lived realities and demand for equality and rights for their communities. I'll show you these videos, very short ones. Basically, these videos show you the ideas that they come together to learn about storytelling, and then they turn their storytelling into the story that they want to tell. So they learn about what is important for the indigenous people, like the forest, the medicines that you can find in the forest, and then later on they draft the story and then they pitch about it and put it to storyboards and then shot the film together. Okay. So this project shows the organization has strong sense of sensitivity towards the most needy actions in place, and they work together with the right persons to tell their own story through medium that is engaging for them and their target audience. So as you can see here, these are actually snapshot from the YouTube channels from this group. After they have the workshop, they created a YouTube channel. So these YouTube channels were run entirely by these indigenous girls. So they created content previously almost every week and every month. So they will have new content. So they learn about the indigenous languages, their traditions. So I think that is very interesting. What I'm trying to say here is we need to identify the problem, what is lacking out there, what is really needed to be done, and then work with the right people for action. So that's what my keywords is. And then this one is another example from an artist. He's actually a graphic artist, but his art is always on visual disobedience. His name is Fahmi Reza. He's actually quite a well-known graphic artist in Malaysia with 177 thousands of followers, as you can see, Kuasa Siswa. So you can follow him. What I liked about him is he always engaged his audience through informed critical discourses. So he will draw certain comics or graphics inspired from real events, from news. And once he attach it on his social media, he will attach another slides of real news, which inspired his work. So most of the time he will have one artwork, and then from the next slide, as you scroll on social media, you will see the slides of the real news that inspired his work. So for example, this one is actually about a home ministry that reads local author's bookstore and sees the books. So taken away the books that he has collected and he wanted to sell. So it's actually a very sensitive issue on censorship, these kind of topics. So he do that. And what I think very good about this person, Fahmi Reza, is that if he doesn't stop on social media. I think very importantly, what we need to do is always going beyond the screen. As you can see, besides those reliable graphics that he tried to do and the news, is actually, apart from his social media appearance, he actively engaged the youth on topics related to democracy through on-the-ground engagement. So through tours, classes in places which critical thoughts and counter-hegemonic narrative are very much needed. So as you can see, this one is a tour that he had designed and he had conducted a few months before the Malaysian election last year. So those are in places, these are the states in Malaysia. As you can see, out of these 4 states here, these 3, at least most of these states that he went to are those states that in need of counter narrative, where the conservative Islam is in the rise. So he went to these kind of states to run classes for free, and probably with donation for people, so for the youth about democracy and what is voting, why it's important for you to involve in the democracy process and things like that. Okay, and my last example is from the Indonesian case. I think it is a very, very successful cases. It's actually the same filmmaker that mentioned by our previous speakers, Dandi Laksono. I really admire him because I think he did a very good job on turning film into something that people wanted to do. And he made films as something that so near to the people. Film sometimes is a medium that somehow hinder people from approaching, because either you can only watch it in the cinema or now on your phone. Not a lot of people can access to it. So what he did is he integrate well-researched film. So most of the time he did a lot of documentary. So he did a lot of well-researched film with a team of researchers coming from very diverse background. So either social scientists, anthropologists, environmentalists, activists, lawyers. So this team of people will do the research, and then he made the film. And he will visit places, but most of the time he is not only staying in the urban area. What we need to do is to go beyond screen and urban area, because we need to outreach to the real people who are really in need of the discourse, and hopefully they will take action out of that. So as you can see on the screen, he actually visited many other places to do screening. So these are the places, because Indonesia is so big, it's an archipelago of thousands of islands. So he made sure he visited those islands as far as Papua on the other places that is very likely we cannot do it by ourselves, with and also donations and sponsorship from people that believe in his cause. So Dandi Laksono is actually a journalist and filmmaker and social influencer. Moved beyond screen and on the urban audience, the filmmaker tapped on his popularity to approach his intended audiences in places rarely reached by most filmmakers. So that is the filmmaker's problem, because filmmakers are just filmmakers. They are not marketing people. So what he did is he crossed beyond film side. He goes to social sciences, anthropologies, sciences, environmentalism, and then businesses, marketing, for instance, to outreach to people which are affected by the issues. So with his team, he created marketing and outreach strategy in order to send his film message across and mobilize them in 4 actions. So among them, there are 2 very iconic films. Just one film called Sexy Killers and another film called Dirty Votes. So Sexy Killers is actually a coal mining industry. It's about coal mining industry and its relation with the Indonesian political establishment. So apart from uploading it on YouTube with more than 37 million views, the film will actually screen at community levels with the reach of over 1,000 community groups in Indonesia. It's not easy to do, I tell you. So he managed to reach out to more than 1,000 community groups. And the later film, Dirty Votes, just screened probably a few weeks ago, before the general election in Indonesia. attempt to uncover political instruments or power used to maintain the status quo of the powers that be in recently held elections. So his film often self-claimed as well-researched, and then this sample also show that the attempts of the filmmaker confronting structural issues upfront while outreaching to the intended people for discourse and actions. So I guess that's all. Hopefully these case studies and samples would inspire you for thinking, discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Chong Lee. Thank you so much. I mean, thank you for sharing how Malaysian cinema, has been working with other disciplines to try to, respond and engage with the issue of climate change and environment. And I think we are running out of time. I think we will save all the feedback and comments later on in the following Q&A session. So please continue, Sunshine.
Dr. Leshaw, how about you? Professor Leshaw, how about you? What do you think about how the screen cultures can approach and sustainably engage in climate action or environmental issue?
Thank you, Sanchai. And I appreciate you running out of time. I'm going to be very, very brief on the basis that we're overshooting. There are two things that were mentioned in the previous discussions. One is that the issues of climate change are borderless. So the acknowledgement that the borders are irrelevant in the case of climate change and environmental crisis. The other, that there's a need to bring different groups and ideologies together if we're going to be able to do anything about environmental damage. That came from Professor Chong Lee. I wanted to just sort of pick up on those two ideas to think about what a strategy might look like for an engagement between film and environmental practice. And I will just very briefly mention the work that I have been doing over the previous years with both Ajahn Atit and Kun Sanchai, with grassroots filmmaking projects which empower or have the intention to empower people who are directly experiencing particular environmental problems with the techniques of recording their own experience, their own lived experience through filmmaking. And Sanchai has been absolutely amazing in running workshops with groups of villagers in both Northeast Thailand and last year in Southern Thailand, giving them the ability to express themselves through short filmmaking using their smartphones and then helping them with editing techniques. And I think that's one of the ways in which there's a possibility for bringing in different groups, crossing ideologies, and imagining that there are no borders, whether they're national borders or class borders or educational borders, that these things need to be dissolved in order for us to address the terrible plight of climate change that faces us. I'll end it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That workshop that Dr. Rachel mentioned, that also bring me to some idea about how to encourage people that got affected by the environment to think about that. Because in Krabi, actually, I would like to say that during the section in the morning session, I also think about that story because we do the workshop for the fisherman. And also, I also asked them the question that, do you think recent year the amount of fish is decreasing or increasing, or any change or something like that? They said they feel nothing at all. But the NGO who sat next to him said, yes, it's changed a lot. So it's kind of something that, okay. So I have a lot of idea from that point, but maybe we don't have time to think about that now, but let's
And last but not least, Dr. Pasut with the same question. How do you see skin culture and perhaps other forms of arts contributing to the interdisciplinary engagement in climate action and environmental issues?
Okay, Thank you. I'm trying to keep it short as much as I can. I think when we talk about climate action and environmental activism or whatever is related to, we also need to understand that the result of these kind of practices will not be like the kind of social practices where you implement something, law and anything, and everything the society will get it fixed, right? Environmental problem is kind of very complex. You promote it today, the result might happen like in the next 10 or 15 years. So we have to understand this kind of long-term, long-duration, I guess, result of the any activities that we do. In terms of the film itself or any screen media related forms, I think, I was really interested in kind of film or any kind of media, screen media that's not within itself, but part of kind of, broader practices. Like Professor Rachel mentioned about, the kind of workshop or film festival or anything that kind of allow this process of normalization of the film, making use of that kind of visual images, visual narrative to make kind of society nowadays today to I guess change their shift the kind of thinking, right? But of course, the result is not going to be immediate, right? We're talking about like next generation. So I think one thing is just to keep doing this kind of work. I'm not sure, am I right? I'm not really an expert in this field, but yeah, that's something to think about. Yep.
Keep doing. Keep walking.
Keep walking.
Keep
And
walking.
film as something else, like film media and something else.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Prasut. So I think we are going to move on to the last session of this afternoon, the first afternoon session, which is the Q&A session. So anyone would like to throw in the first question? Online audience as well. I mean, you can type or you can just open your microphone and ask by yourself, or you just type in the chat box and we will read out your questions for you. Anybody?
No.
You
Okay.
immediately left.
We have one question from the room.
From the student.
From the student?
From the PhD student.
Huh?
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm fine. Okay, we met before. And hi, Rachel. Nice to see you here. Okay, so yeah, going to straight to my question. So for the panelist presentation and also your discussion as well. So it seems that one line of thought or ecological thought is geared towards indigenous knowledge and thinking, right? So I wonder whether we should take caution when engaging with such lines of thinking, because sometimes, scholars or, the general public tend to romanticize the local people's relationship with nature, so how could we keep the balance not to romanticize indigenous, groups of people, and also to keep in line with their way of being and thinking. Okay.
Anyone want to answer?
I'm happy to respond to that. I think it's a really good question. Fai, nice to see and hear you. I mean, I think this was a problem in the kind of 1990s filmmaking that I talked about, that absolute kind of romanticization of the countryside that had nothing to do with the countryside whatsoever. I think one of the ways in which you issue is by careful listening, and that's one of the things that we were trying to achieve in the project that you also were working on with the fishermen in southern Thailand. Not just going with dominant narratives, but actually listening carefully to the expressions of lived experience of the villagers, which are often, they do run counter to the kind of ideas and myths that as outsiders we might harbor about you know, how perfect the relationship to nature is. It's not. It's obviously deeply nuanced and often not idealistic and quite cruel in some senses. So I mean, I think that opening up the space to be able to hear what the actual experience is of people's relationship to nature is absolutely essential if we're going to deal with questions of climate change. And we shouldn't assume that people who are close to nature necessarily respect the fact that they might be damaging nature. But which is not to say that I don't think that the most damage is done by kind of giant industrial complexes and the forces of capitalism. Okay.
Thank you. You want to add something?
Yeah, I agree with Rachel about you know, really being genuine about the indigenous experience. I saw a few actually documentary films that kind of touch upon this like importance of indigenous knowledge and epistemology. And these films do not just romanticize, but of, you know, whatever struggles that the indigenous people go through, genuinely tell that stories to the audience, I guess. But then of course not generalizing that knowledge that it can be the kind of solution for everything, especially environmental problems.
Professor Chongli, would you like to also respond to that question?
I think that had already been mentioned by the two speakers. This, I guess the collaborative works when it comes to either an NGO or together or with these indigenous people, it's always involved some kind of process of negotiations, understanding, and until a point that you reach an agreement that you want to work on a project together. I guess we should always come to have the respect that this is a project we wanted to do together. So otherwise, it will be something that might be decided for one side, or which doesn't really bring positivity to what we wish to achieve. Yeah, that's all from me.
Thank you. Do you anyone has any more questions or remarks or any feedbacks on the roundtable discussions from the online audience? Do you have anyone has any more questions for our lovely? Oh, okay. We have one question. Hi, Rachel, thank you for your talk. I like the idea of slow balance that you brought up. I think the fact that environmental impacts usually take a long time to be felt is not only make it harder for governmental agencies to acknowledge the problems, but it also means that the people who are actually affected sometimes do not even realize that they are being victimized. That makes it doubly difficult to tackle this problem. Okay, thank you so much, Professor Tho Sang.
Yes, I completely agree, and I think I really think this concept of slow violence is an excellent one, and I wish I could claim that I'd found it myself, but haven't.
Okay.
For our three lovely speakers, would you like to have any final remarks for now? Professor Shockley, Rachel?
No, just to say thank you for inviting me to be part of this. I think it looks like a really wonderful event, and it's a pity that I couldn't attend the morning because it was the middle of the night here.
Yes, so I think as we actually running out of time for this session as well. So on behalf of all the hosts for this conference, I would like to thank our lovely keynote speakers, Professor Rachel Harrison, Professor Chong Li Yao, and Professor Pasut Lasu Luck as well for joining us today. And special thanks to Rachel Harrison. I know it was too early for you in London, but thank you so much. And Chong Li as well, for squeezing your time to be with us online today. So if we don't have any remark, thank you so much, everyone. And I think we're gonna have like 5 minutes break, and after that we're gonna have a film screening of Solid by the Sea. But unfortunately, we cannot stream the screening online due to the copyright. But we will be back after the screening at about
Have a
4:30.
Q&A with the director.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe about 4:30 p.m. Bangkok time. We will be back here in this room or online, the same room, the same Zoom for the talk with the director of the film Solid by the Sea.
Yeah. Before we go to break, let me talk about the film a bit. So maybe you can intrigue you to enjoy the Q&A after this. The film is totally perfect for this event. After the whole day listening about the theory and academic side, now we're gonna look at the practical side. We're gonna see how filmmaker, this guy Patipan Buntalik, he's a young filmmaker and he make this is his debut feature. And he combined the environmental issue with the sexuality and also the religions and the art piece. So I think this film is perfectly proper for this event, and how you're gonna, we talk about how the film represent the environmental issue, how the film can help the audience engage with this kind of issue. Let's see that, watch the film together, and after screening we're gonna have the Q&A with the director. So let's listen to him, what he think about and why he decided to make this kind of movie at his debut feature. And also he got award from the Busan Film Festival last October. This is really successful for his first feature film. Okay, so see you after break.
Thank you so much, everyone. And we're gonna close the okay. We're gonna close on the online platform now for the copyrights, and we're gonna come back to this room if you are on site. If you are online, please use the same Zoom link, and we will start the discussion on the film Solids by the Sea at about 4:30 p.m. Bangkok time. So for now, thank you so much, Rachel and Chong Li, for joining us. Miss you. Bye.